plan is really just a list of things that won't happen, which is kind of runs counter to how I operate. It's like I'm all about planning out the next 5 years of your life, but I also know that life happens and that plan will have to deviate a little.
Welcome to Mindset Lessons from the Field. I'm Gina Casazza, the author of the upcoming memoir, Training with the SEAL. Today's guest, I am so excited for. He has been on the show. This is his third time, actually. If you haven't listened to any of his episodes, I highly, highly recommend, especially the last one that we did when we dissected his book, Beyond the Battlefield. And we are back for an even deeper dissection. I want to say, check out the book Beyond the Battlefield. It's available on Amazon. We talk about it a lot. I bring him clearly back frequently, so I'm a big fan of the book. He was a Green Beret, and he now is a performance coach with top tier performance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to introduce and bring back onto the show Chris Lee. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's always fun to talk to you. So thank you for the invite.
So really it brought you on. It was a little selfish for myself, but I know that other people are, this is not a Gina thing. Like this has to be a universal thing. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, who can I bring on to talk about this? And you just came to my mind because what we're going to talk about is how to keep that identity. And for those that might not have heard the identity episode with you, it's how do you go to the, you identify as someone that goes to the gym, right? How do you keep that identity of someone that goes to the gym? Let's say the gym's not available, or you are on a plane for 17 hours, or you're suddenly taking care of children, like my life. So how do you stick to those identities of who you are while your life is kind of just not on routine like it normally is?
Yeah, that's a great question. And admittedly, I'm still trying to figure it out most of the time. First thing that came to mind is I read in a book recently. I'm a huge Jack Reacher novel fan, and then I got into the Gray Man series, and the main character said this line, and I was like, yeah, that's spot on. He says, a plan is really just a list of things that won't happen. And which is kind of runs counter to how I operate. It's like I'm all about planning out the next 5 years of your life. But I also know that life happens, and that plan will have to deviate a little from time to time. So then how do you navigate that? And I think the trick is focusing on the things that you have control over, and which makes things way easier because there's really only two things that you can control, and those are your thoughts and your actions. And so, yeah, if you're on a 17-hour flight, you might not want to be the weirdo that's doing push-ups in the aisle of the plane, and that's okay. Or maybe, the gym's closed. So now what do you do? Well, I mean, you can still do body weight exercises. They're not as fun and sexy, but they still get the job done. You can still get a pretty awesome workout just doing push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups or whatever. The trick is not hoping that nothing will disrupt your plan, but rather anticipating that your plan will be disrupted. What is your backup? And to maintain that journey towards that identity that you're striving for, whether that's somebody that's, healthy and takes care of their body, or somebody that wants to be the calmest one in the room. Regardless of what happens in life, you have the opportunity to act in a way that is in alignment with the kind of person that you want to be. And it might not be ideal. It might not be what you wrote down on paper for your workout that day, but you still have an opportunity to get after it.
When I was with my nephew, well, by the way, I always am planned out to and I do well the first week or so. I'm like, wow, I got this. Yeah. I got this done. This is organized, ready to go. And then you just start to go downhill. And the thing is, once one thing goes downhill, if you don't catch it, it all goes downhill. And sometimes you just can't catch it because it's just freaking avalanche,
right?
Which was my life last month. And I am just this is what I want to talk about also. How do you I want to say restart, or not, just like get back on the horse. Cause I feel like when I am on this downhill, at this point, you just throw up your hands. And then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I got to get back into it. Now I'm home. Okay. I got to get back into the routine. I'm completely backed up because I just screwed myself over by
Right.
not like, getting on it. Right. And now it's just like a harder train to get moving again.
Sure. Sure. This was a couple years ago. It was like my favorite routine. I would go to the coffee shop and do a bit of writing, do a little bit of, posting on TikTok or whatever, because that's how I was starting to try to build things. I had this like list of things that I would do, and it was great. And then I went on vacation and didn't do those things. And yeah, coming back home, trying to restart that routine was incredibly difficult. And I think it comes from like this break in momentum. It's easy to like maintain action when you've got like a bit of a track record built up behind you to like keep pushing you forward. But then, yeah, life happens. You go on vacation or you're in the hospital or whatever it is. How do you get back on the train and get it rolling again? And what I've come up with is, all right, there's nothing I can do about the things that just happened. All I can focus on is right now. What can I do right now in the moment, or what can I do today to make a little bit of progress? I know the motivation will come after momentum has been built. And so I just got to take that kind of first step and start building the momentum. So then that motivation starts to sink back in after you've got like a week or two under your belt doing whatever, because you like almost don't want to break the track record, like if you've been doing really well for 2 weeks straight, and that moment shows up where it's like, I have an opportunity to not go to the gym, but I don't want to break my track record, so I'll just go anyway. I think that's where that motivation starts to sink in. It's because you've built up momentum to drive you forward.
Everything that you're saying is just like spot on. And I think the thing is too, is like you mentioned, like when you're just starting your business, right? And you go on vacation. For myself, I have a business, and I actually just started a business, and also my other business, like with my children's book and speaking, is fairly new. It's like 2 years old or less than that, right? So most of the time, I mean, not most of all of the time, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I am clueless, and I don't know what's going to bring in a sale. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going to put food on the table, right? And then when you get back, you're just even more lost, because you're like, well, I don't even know if that was working, what I was doing. I was just doing it. And, here and there things trickled in, but I don't know. And then you come
Sure.
back, and then you just feel like, especially because when you work for somebody else, it's like there's set guidelines, right? Like when you need to be in, what your job is, what's going on. When it's your own business, like you're clueless. Like you just like, you got this product and you're just like, okay, what next, right? And then you're
Right.
like, well, you could do this, this, and this. And then like you just throw everything at the wall to see what sticks, right? And then nothing might not stick, right? And
Right.
and then like you get back to, you can go on vacation for a bit, and then you come back and you're like, well, what do I do now? I'm just like, I'm
Right.
clueless. And the only thing that I know that I could do for myself is like that identity. That identity like is what builds the foundation, I feel, to like at least get Gina grounded, and
Right.
Gina back to Gina, where it's like, okay, like I'm a person that goes to the gym. Like I'm a person that is a constant learner. Like,
Mhm.
okay, so let me just sit down right now and be like, let me assess what worked or what didn't work. Let me assess like, well, oh, I need to do marketing. Like that's my new thing right now. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna focus on marketing. So I like signed up for a couple of college classes and like YouTubes and stuff like that to like figure this out, right? So like those things, that you get back to that identity of who you are. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit more about, especially like if someone's new, actually, let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about the identity, because if someone didn't listen to your other two episodes,
Sure.
yeah, it's a good segue.
Yeah. So as a performance coach now, and people come to me, often they show up and they're like, "Hey, I want to lose some weight, or I want to connect better with my family, or I want to grow my business, whatever it is. Awesome. Those are goals, and we're going to get to those. Let's start with tell me who you want to become first, because that becomes the foundation on which you can stack your goals. Case in point, the identity that I strive for in the physical realm of life is I look good naked and I'm hard to kill. My thought behind that is some of it is still, residue from the army, don't die. But the other part of it is like, I think it encapsulates like kind of what I want to achieve as a physically fit human being. When I look in the mirror, I want to be proud of what I see, because that's really just a testament of daily habits and actions. I want life to have a very difficult time taking me out. That's kind of who I want to evolve into on a daily basis. And so if I keep that in mind, that's like the sun in the sky that keeps me oriented to the direction I need to be going. And on those days that, maybe I'm struggling or I'm like not in the mood to go to the gym, I refer back to that, like this person that I want to evolve into, what would he do in this moment? Well, he'd probably, suck it up, put on his shoes and go lift. And so it almost becomes like this reference point where you can say, well, what would future Gina do in this moment? The one that has established the business and the one that is just crushing it and the one that is calm and organized, what would she do in the moment right now? Well, she would probably, do X, Y, Z. And so now it not only is a little bit of motivation to strive for, but it's also like an internal mastermind that you can ask, like, all right, future Chris, what would you do right now? Well, I probably definitely wouldn't do that. So the identity to me is like paramount because it is that foundation. It is the reference on which everything else can be built. And it also becomes like this great filter. You can start to say no to things. So for example, if I look good naked, I'm hard to kill, that is going to dictate the things that I either put into my body or how I interact with my day. Does that mean I'm going to sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 10 hours? No, probably not. Because that's not who future Chris, that's not what future Chris would do. And so it becomes like this filter, like, well, okay, I'm going to say no to that because it runs counter to who I'm trying to align myself with. Does that kind of make sense?
Totally. No, I love that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it resonates with me so much because I made that quote a t-shirt and I like wear it to go to the gym to motivate myself. And I definitely get a lot of stares. And then I get worried though. Like I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like this quote is like testing somebody, like to like try and take me out and they'll win. And like, so I'm like, I'm always cognizant of that when I'm at the gym, but it does get me to go to the gym. It keeps me motivated to get there because I'm like, okay, I'm this person. And for myself, I was like, okay, even though I am taking care of a 3-year-old right now and everything kind of went out the window, I was very active. And I'm like, you know what? If this is it, this is my gym time, even though I'm not lifting, but technically I'm lifting. The kid's over 30 pounds. I'm carrying him everywhere. I'm like,
it's heavy after a while.
That's what I was saying to myself. And it was so funny too, because see, he doesn't know this, but in my mind, so we went to Disney. I took him to Disney and he's not 3 yet, but he is a big boy. And he'd be like, hold me. And in my mind, like my arms are breaking, right? I mean, not my mind. My body is like, my arms are breaking, right? But and the kid can walk. It's not like he can't, right? And there's a bunch of other kids his age that are walking, but he needs to be held. And in my mind, I go, this is the weights that you're not at the gym lifting.
Exactly.
Lift the kid up,
Exactly. Yeah.
For like, we're at Disney for like 12 hours. He must have been in my hands for like 10. And I'm just like, I'll take that win in a way. Like, I was like, okay, like that felt like the gym, but I guess how do you get in those little wins of, let's talk about, you have the 5, the finance, emotional, mental, physical,
and social.
Social. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you how do all of them stay balanced when, like I said, like the best way for me to explain it, and for anybody that's listening onto the show, like I'm not a parent. So and also with my when I'm with my nephew and I am like the sub for that time being, it's right. Well, for a brief time, it was just me and him.
Right.
Usually I have my mom, so it's a real nice tag team. But when like, and she's star player, like she's like the A team. So like when A team's out, B team subs in, which is me. And my life is already like, I do 6,000 things. At that time, I was like in the middle of a company launch, in the middle of this. Like, and I just feel like there's no way I could hit all those balancing. Like, how do you balance it? And you're a father, so you kind of can understand like the kid thing. And but for myself, there was no tag team at that point. It was just me, and I'm just like a mess.
I actually don't believe in balance, and I tell my clients this all the time. Balance means everything gets equal time and energy, and that's impossible, because then you're going to wind up half-assing everything, right? So what I try to teach is harmony. And what I mean by that is when you go to and watch a symphony perform, not all of the instruments are going to get the same amount of playing time. But when they play the right notes at the right time, it makes incredible music, right? And that's how I try to view life. I mean, you as a business owner know, like, it's not an 8-hour workday. It's like all the day, every day, so then how do I then make the times with my daughters important? And you kind of talked about this earlier, but like, I try not to just sit and watch TV or scroll my phone. We do try to go to the park or ride bikes, or my youngest is an aspiring author. And so she's constantly bouncing story ideas off of me. So that's our time to connect. And very recently, and I'm super stoked about this, she has a science fair project coming up. Last year, with my minimal guidance, we got first place. I say we because I was stoked, because I always wanted to participate in the science fair project. So this year it's like, all right, we're returning champs. We got to take it up a notch. So those moments where I get to nerd out with her, working on stuff like that, I view those as just a little bit higher quality than just sitting and watching a TV show. And we definitely do some of that too. She loves Bob's Burgers. And so we watch that from time to time too. But my point is, if the areas of your life aren't getting the same time as other areas, then the time you do give those minimal areas need to just be high quality. Same with like the gym. Like, you're not going to spend 8 hours in the gym. I mean, an hour you can get a lot done, and an hour is only 4% of your day. My point is, like, gym time, daughter time, meditation time, like, it doesn't have to be equal amounts of time all around, but if it's high quality, you can still move that needle forward in whatever area you're pursuing.
Let me ask you this question. I'm trying to figure out how to tell me if this makes sense.
Okay.
Let's say, as a business owner, right? Especially when you mentioned, like, in the beginning, you were starting out, you were using TikTok as your marketing source, right?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing. Okay. I am using TikTok right now as my marketing source to drive sales to my children's book, right? Now, in my mind, part of me is just like, I need quality over quantity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have time for quality. Like, I have 30 seconds, right?
Right.
And like, I learned that you don't even get a bathroom break, with these children. Like, you don't get any of that. So I am like, and now I do get up like 3 to 4 hours earlier than him, but like, and 3 to 4 hours, you do get a substantial amount done. However, like, for myself, sometimes like quality, and when I look at some of the stuff I do, I mean, quality is like a 6 or maybe less than that. But what do you think in terms of quality over quantity, or quantity over quality, in order to like just at least keep moving the needle forward?
I think marketing and advertising is an interesting thing, particularly nowadays, because the memory of the internet is so small. Like if you put out like a horrible video, it will be forgotten in 24 hours. Like no one's going to remember it. Having said that, from an advertising marketing standpoint, that means everybody's forgetting about you in 24 hours unless you're putting out videos, or putting out content to get in front of their face. So there is a balance there for sure. I think there's a gal in my group that asked a similar question. It wasn't specifically about marketing and advertising. I offered this. I said, of all the tasks that you are required to do throughout the day, which ones carry the most weight? So sometimes an email can just be an email and you can bang it out and send it on its way. It doesn't have to be like perfectly constructed and worded ideally. You can just get the point across and send it. And the reason I said that is like, if you're spending the same amount of mental bandwidth on an email versus like how you're navigating inter-office dynamics, like those two things are very different and don't necessarily need the same amount of energy and focus. So it's really like a reflection of like, all right, the activities that I need to get done today, which ones carry the most weight and which ones are going to require more of my mental energy to put out good product, because those are the big needle movers. And so I say all that to say like, all right, it's going to take some actual like self-reflection and like analyzing of all the tasks that you do. Because we all do to-do lists in our notebooks or on our computer. Not all of those are weighted the same. Some definitely could be put off till tomorrow or delegated to somebody else, or some need to happen right now because something is on fire or bleeding. There needs to be almost like a triage moment where like, which of these activities or which of these tasks are super important or in our life and death, or are going to require a great deal more like mental acuity and intention. So I need to like save my brain space for that. Because I can't be burning up my mental bandwidth on silly emails and stuff if this task is going to require a great deal of me. So it's almost like, all right, you got your to-do list. Now take a breath and look at it and figure out which ones are like prioritized.
It's funny you say that, because when we were at Disney, it's me and him, and I had a emergency with my company, like emergency, and I was like, who wants ice cream? Just to like get like for him to just sit down and eat something while I can like just be on the phone real quick to take care of this emergency. And then like went back online, because I know that if we were like waiting online, there needs to be, it's almost 3. There's no like, right. I'm just going to stand here. Like what? You can't expect that. Right. Yeah. Or like maybe like, hey buddy, like, got this little business emergency, just give me 2 minutes. Like, what does that mean? Like, he doesn't know what that means. And so like, that's where like I had to go. But it's funny on when you have this to-do list and then something might come up and you're like, or like you say to yourself, I don't have time for the gym, right? I have to get this done. I have to get that done. And it's like, well, if like your house flooded, right, you have time to figure out that, right? Right. Like everything else goes out the window. So I feel like you're just saying this isn't a priority right now. And the thing is then that's not who you're identifying as, right? That's not who you, and I think one of the things that I'd love for you to address is like the whole get out of your head in terms of like, if I don't do this or because I took 2 weeks off, like I'm so behind, or like, all those, that negative, like, down on yourself. And then, because I'm constantly fighting that. Like, it's like, I say that and I'm like, just shut up. Like, no need, no need to do that. And I'm like, why do we even have to have this conversation? This is the same conversation every other month. Right. So let's, can you talk about that a little bit?
I can't remember who said it. Somebody in the comments can correct me, but it was on a podcast and the individual was saying, I need to speak to myself as though I actually really cared about myself. I need to speak to myself in a way that I would a very close friend that I genuinely care about. You know that we are often very hard on ourselves, particularly with that inner monologue in our brain. And what I teach a lot of my clients is like, just cut that out. Like, talk to yourself as though you genuinely cared about yourself. The negative self-talk is going to catch up to you. That negative self-talk is going to be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what I mean by that is, like, if you keep telling yourself that you're a failure, or you keep telling yourself that like you can't get it together, eventually your subconscious is going to be like, oh, okay, I guess you're right, and start behaving that way.
What about the conversation? Like for myself, it just will show up and I'm like, that's not true. I let it go. I'm just like, that's not true. I'm moving on. But it just it's just, and I'm saying to myself, like, is this always going to just, I always have to like, be like, shut up, or like, like, and I'll just be like, or like, it'll say something and I'm like, that's not true. Like, I'm very successful. Like, it's working out for me. Like, I am always combating those. Like, I'm always,
Sure.
but they're always still coming. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it doesn't just go away. You have these 6,000 thoughts, and I guess maybe that's the best I'm going to be able to do. And, because I don't know, like, does it ever stop for you?
That's a great question. And that's why I worded how you should talk to yourself the way I did. Speaking to yourself as though it's somebody you genuinely care about doesn't mean you're always going to blow sunshine up your own butt. It means sometimes, like, you need to say, hey, buddy, step it up. Like, you are not measuring up to the standard you've set for yourself. That's the kind of conversation I would have with somebody that I genuinely cared about. Like, hey, this is the standard you've set for yourself and you're not hitting it. What's going on? So there's a bit of a balance there. And so that conversation that maybe you're having is like maybe the self-doubt and that type of thing. I think that's a good practice that you get into, is like, just let it go, like counter it with all the things that you are accomplishing. Another practice I teach to my clients is like gratitude. Like, when those conversations start happening in your head, just start listing out all the things you're grateful for, because it starts to change perspective of like, yeah, maybe this thing isn't working exactly the way I want it to, but man, I'm so grateful for X, Y, Z. And it just kind of starts to shift that perspective. And having said all of that, I'm not sure if that voice will ever stop, being a jerk inside your own head, but we're playing the long game. And so even if it takes 60 years for that voice to finally shut up, okay, well then 60 years is my goal. Then I'll get there eventually. You know what I mean? And it's just going to be daily awareness of what that voice in my head is saying,
Funny you say this, like with the gratitude and stuff, because I texted a friend of mine yesterday and I'm like, dude, I've been saying good a lot lately, which is like the sign that like things are going wrong. And I'm just like, oh, good. Like that's the combat of gratitude, right? It's like the Jocko says the whole good thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I ended up I launched a company and I ended up having to retract it. And like, it was a nightmare, right? But it wasn't. It was like, good. Wow. Yeah. I'm learning this. I'm learning that. Might be costing a couple of $1,000, right? But I'm like, good. Like, and I'm saying to myself, like, all these like good, like I got this speaking event that I have been applying for almost 3 years, like got rejected, I don't know how many times, and well over 20. And then it got postponed. And I'm like, good, more time for me to practice, right? In my mind, I'm just like, oh my God, and I'm just like, no, good, like, and I'm just like, oh, and it's that gratitude of just like, okay, this gives me room for this, gives me room for that. And it took me a really long time to get into this headspace of good, because human instinct is like anger. Like, I feel like we're not going towards good, we're going towards what the heck, right? Right. It's just like normal. And like for myself, I know I'm always striving to be non-emotional.
Right.
I'm like, that's my thing. Like, I don't know I don't know how to word it in identity standpoint, but it's just, I guess it's not like just like calm. I get it's like literally like take the emotion out of it. Like when this company thing happened,
Yeah.
I was like, literally whoa, fight this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I'm like, I'm going to the press. I'm like I'm like revved up. And my
Yeah.
brother was like, listen, like you're so good in business if you weren't so freaking emotional. And he's like you can't be emotional. And
Yeah.
and it's been told to me like 10,000 times. And I'm like, no, I know it's something I've been working on. I'm like, I really think I was I'm like an 8 now, but I was a 10. And I'm like, I dropped 2 levels. So
Yeah.
like, how does one like take emotions out? Cause I know for you, like being calm is like a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does one take emotions out of it? Cause I also feel like with that negative talk, it there's anger, there's sadness, there's all these
Yeah.
negative, there's emotions that come with the thoughts, right?
Yep.
There's emotions that come with the actions that you take, right? So
Mhm.
how does one combat those emotions?
I'm reluctant to encourage people to try to turn off their emotions or to completely remove emotions. I, in fact, think emotions are incredibly important. They're telling you something. In your case, you got super angry. That tells you something. Maybe it's telling you, I hate failing, or I hate
Mhm.
not coming in first. So I encourage folks, listen to that emotion, hear what it's trying to tell you, analyze it, but don't let the emotion dictate what your next step is. And that's why I think it's important to have a plan. If you have a plan laid out and an event happens that stimulates an emotional response, okay, I'm getting angry or I'm getting super sad, I can feel all of that, then I can take a breath and refer back to my plan, because my plan was created during a period of relative calm and with my logical mind. And so it's the best plan I could come up with the information I have. So this event, whatever it was, I can feel sad, I can feel angry, feel it, let it go, refer back to the plan, because the plan was created in in a safe space that you can then carry on, and you can trust it. So when the mind is kind of in the midst of turmoil and dealing with chaos, the plan will can be trusted because your brain's not acting right in the moment. Like if you if you're super furious about something that happened, somebody said something to you, cut you off or whatever, you can feel that, but don't react because of it. Go back to the plan that you had laid out, because you can trust it. You can trust it when you're feeling chaotic in your mind. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Now talking about plan, like, and you mentioned this earlier in the show where you do the whole 5 year and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do backup plan?
Good question. I've encouraged some folks to develop like a break glass in case of emergency type of plan. And what I mean by that is, if you have a list of tasks that you should be doing on a daily basis and life happens, your house floods or is no longer there or something happens, what can you whittle that daily task list down to bare bones, where it's still maintaining momentum and still inching you forward, but it might not be as robust as the initial plan. Now, kind of to your question, do you have a backup plan? Does that mean like if the goal of running a super successful business, if that doesn't materialize, do I have a backup plan? No, I typically don't come up with those. I do allow the freedom for goals to change, though. As you're moving towards the identity that you've established for yourself, sometimes the goal that you attached to that identity, as you're working through it, actually isn't in as close alignment to that identity as you want it to be. And so I allow freedom to adjust goals. Like there was a brief period in my life where I wanted to be a bodybuilder and just get as yoked as possible. And I still sometimes think of that. But when I take a step back, that doesn't quite align with who I want to be in the physical realm of life. And for me, just being a really well-rounded athlete is in better alignment than being a bodybuilder. And so taking that goal of stepping on stage in a Speedo, being jacked, and tweaking it to like, I want to outperform my grandkids when they show up. Like, that is in better alignment with the kind of individual that I'm trying to evolve into. And that was an evolution through kind of trial and error, but also like better understanding the kind of man I want to be. And so I give myself the freedom, and I give my clients the freedom to adjust goals based on the identity, because they've navigated the road a little further and they're like, actually, this path makes more sense.
For myself, I feel like the plans are always changing, which is funny because I'm such a planner. But like I mean, like, also I'm in the creative entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
Whereas like I started in the film business, and even though I left Los Angeles, like I'm still in the business, but in just a different capacity. And then people are like, when are you going to let that go? And I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to let it go. I'm going to like do my best to still hit the goals that I have. And
Right.
if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm working on letting go of an outcome.
Yeah.
It's like just seeing where the cards lie. Okay, well, in the meantime, I'm going to be an author, right?
Right.
I've been writing for TV and film. Now I'm going to shift to books, right? And
Yeah.
then I can always sell a project if someone asks me about it, but I'll focus on this avenue to make some money, right?
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, it's like you're kind of doing the same thing, but you're just segueing the plan like a little bit.
Yeah.
What I want to ask is getting back to like the first part of the show when we talked about getting back on the horse and like, getting when you are back. For myself, I'll say it is very rare that I am home for longer than 5 weeks at a time. Okay. Yeah, which makes for just more chaos, right?
Right.
Because I'm constantly like traveling, right? Something is coming up, I have to go somewhere, right?
Right.
So, what do you have? Like, what are the steps that you would say to your client? Let me break this down into two parts. It's like, what would you say to your client that's always like on the move, especially for work? And like, I know for my brother, when he was in finance and he had to like go to see different companies and all that stuff. So I know it's like, it's not just me in terms of like travel. It's like anybody, some people who have a high demanding job and they're traveling, right?
Sure.
What plan and what do you have for them to like not fall off, or just like not, or not at least go where I went, where like life was in shambles, right? And not really, I'm exaggerating the entire thing, but just like nothing, everything just went out the window, right? And then what I want to know is, what is the plan you have for them to get back on and not do that again?
And that kind of goes back to that break glass in case of emergency list of things that you can do on a daily basis. Maybe it's as simple as texting one old friend, meditating for 10 minutes, doing 10 push-ups in your hotel room, etc., checking your bank account. Maybe it's as simple as that. And the intent there, because you're probably not going to move the needle much with those like very small tasks, but the intent is to just maintain a trickle of momentum. So when you do get back to normal, whatever normal looks like, it's easier to hop back on the horse. And so having like bare bones, I mean like really bare bones things you can do on a daily basis, particularly if you travel a lot, or if you don't have access to a gym regularly or whatever. Something you can do on a daily basis that no matter what, if you're stuck in a hotel room all by yourself with no amenities, like you can at least do these couple of things to maintain that momentum. And then when you do get back, or maybe you weren't even able to do those and you've had 2 weeks off and you're trying to get back, all right, start off small, like super small, to build that momentum again. Because at that point, it's not really a lack in. We'll use the gym as an example. If you take 2 weeks off, there's really not going to be much of a decrease in physical capability in those 2 weeks. So it's really a psychological thing to get back in the gym and start grinding again. And so maybe that simple step you can do is, all right, I'm just going to go to the gym and walk for 15 minutes on the treadmill. Okay, well, do that. And then maybe tomorrow I'll lift weights. It's like start off so small that it's just like, all right, reintroducing the psyche back into the routine that you had established. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh my God. Well, your last line, like reintroduce the psyche, right? Like there was a moment where my mom and I were able to go to the gym. Like we were like the boys are watching a football game. Like this is our opportunity. Like, let's go. Right. And part of us like didn't want to go, but at the same time, we were like, we can't. It's because we haven't done it in so long. This is now not going to the gym is now comfortable. Right.
Right.
So we were like, and then we go and it's just like, oh my God, like this is amazing. So glad we went. And that is not something that would ever cross my vortex. Like anyone that knows me, like knows like physical activity is not fun for me. And yet I've like been an athlete my entire life.
Yeah.
I am the most energized, active human being. Like my brother said to me Saturday, where was I? I was in Las Vegas on Saturday. And he was like, what do you want to do? And he's like, you want to go to Zion? Because let's talk about Zion for a while. I'm like, let's go. And like 5 minutes later, we're in the car. We're driving to Zion, right? We get there and like, I'm revved up. I'm excited getting out of the car. We're going to do this hike. My brother's not a hiker. And it was like, how fun is this, right? And he's just like, I'm like, this beautiful, right? And he's just like, I could have died and not seen this place, but and he's like, but it's cool, like it's nice, like we're here. But it's just funny though because I realized like that is a form of physical activity that I'm just like, and I guess, and the thing is like, find something that you are in love with that brings you some joy to get you to then do the stuff that you don't like to do. Like for me, go to the gym, right?
Right.
But that made me also like the next day want to do some legs because I was like, I gotta get these legs stronger. Like, especially as I'm like going up the hill because I'm 35 and though that's young, that youngness doesn't stay for, like I want to be 90 doing this. Like you said, right? You want to like beat your grandkids and things, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel with my nephew. And so like, that's the way I want to live. But I realized too, like you have to look at wins differently than like your standard routine. That makes sense, right? Like, because sometimes it's just not possible, right? And then, like you said, like in balance, like that was a 2.5 hour drive. There was no like work, like there's no purpose up there too. Like, and by the time I get back, like it's like I'm out. So, and then you have to just be like, I'm cool with that. Like, you know what? This was a great day. This was a cool experience. I got that social aspect because if anybody knows me, they know like my family time is like the most cherished time in the world for me. Like, I don't care what I have going on. If one of my family members are like, you want to do something, like the world ends. Like, I'm like, let's go, but that's just because it's just means the world to me. And like you said in the beginning, like your quality time with your daughters and stuff like that, like that's high rating compared to other things. It's like, that's time that like is so valuable to me. As opposed to me doing a TikTok to sell a book. Like, like that $20 can wait, while I do that. So I also think like celebrating those like those wins and understanding you're still hitting your identity, just maybe not balance. You're in harmony more than, and that keeps you grounded too, because then like, it's like, wow, I just got to do that. And it's like, now I'm going to work on my website tomorrow and things. You get more excited for it because you're productive versus like sitting at home watching Netflix for 10 hours. Exactly. I don't understand those people. But what any other like tips or anything that you want that we didn't discuss in terms of, what we've been talking about as a
Yeah.
performance coach?
The best piece of advice I got in the Army was actually at selection. The crew and I had just wrapped up like a team day event or a team week event. So we're all tired and busted up and like exhausted. And one of the cadre sat us all down. He's like, listen up, man. Everyone's going to have a bad day. The trick is to have more good days than bad. And it changed my perspective on how I viewed selection, the Q course, life. It's not like a pass fail event. It's rather an accumulation of patterns. And so if you had a bad day either in business or dealing with family or in the gym, that's just a bad day. It's a moment in time. You can learn from it. The trick is accumulate more good days. And so strive to be better tomorrow, and getting out of this pass fail mentality has been huge because I understand life is really just an accumulation of moments. And I want most of my moments to be really good.
I like how you put the pass fail in there, right? Because it's like, I feel like equating it to entrepreneur, it's success or failure, right? And it's like, okay, like, and then what does define success or failure, right? What does define pass or fail, right? So, because like if you think about it, even though this company had to go in a totally different direction, and before this, I did have to shut one company down, and some people would be like, "Oh, you failed," and it's like, "Well, no, I learned so much. Like I wouldn't have had this if I didn't have that, or I wouldn't have learned this." So I feel like those skill sets that you stack up, and again, the way you're talking to yourself, the way you are saying good and gratitude and all that stuff adds up to when you are feeling like you're not on the wagon, like you're not like, or you're not seeing progress. I think the biggest take what you said and what I'm going to do is put together that break the window plan, like that emergency like plan. So like for myself, because I know I don't know yet, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be gone in the next week. Again, so like I'm going to put together like that break glass of like, okay, like 50 push-ups is fine for right now, right? Like let's I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and that's the bare bones that I'm going to get at and see what happens. And I am going to encourage people to have that break glass plan for yourself, and also ease into when you get back. I think too, and actually I want to real quick, this just came in. Sometimes I get like paralyzed with so much that I got going on that like you just like my body just like shuts down. Like suddenly all the energy just gets drained. It's like a robot. Like it just like all of a sudden like turns down, and I just want to go to sleep and just like wake up tomorrow, right? And take care of it. But the thing is that like it's not going to go away because it's you didn't do anything, right? You didn't touch anything. And then when I'm laying down, that's what I'm saying in my head. So I can't even enjoy my night of sleep because or the nap time that I think I'm going to have for myself to recharge, because all I'm thinking about is how I'm not moving the needle forward because I'm just like, I'm not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
So actually, before we wrap up, this is a really good one. How does one, especially like when you come back, you have way more to do because you haven't done much, right?
Yeah.
So, but how do you get over that? Do you ever experience that paralyzing of
all the time? Yeah. To me, that kind of shows up in a form of procrastination. Man, I've got a bazillion things to do. I'm going to watch Netflix or whatever, the Marvel movie that, so I found that procrastination in my own mind is actually a desire to regain control when I feel like I'm out of control. It's like, oh, well, I've got all this stuff to do. I'm going to grab hold of what I think I can control, which is my time, and do it and use it however I want, which is, watching Captain America, whatever. You're right. It doesn't do you any favors when you do that. When you go take the nap, when you have 1,000 things to do, because you don't get good rest. You're constantly thinking about all the things that need to get done. Or when you're watching the movie, you can't even enjoy the movie because you got a bunch of stuff that's just waiting for you. What I have found is in those moments, find the smallest task that requires like zero brain power and just do that one. And that just like inches you forward. All right. And then the next smallest task. And this kind of runs counter to what I was saying earlier of figuring out which tasks are most high priority and devoting a great deal of mental energy towards those. But if you're in a point where like you're starting to shut down or starting to put things off because you want to regain control of your chaotic schedule, it's like find the simplest, easiest, no-brainer task and then crush it. And then do the next one. And then do the next one. And at that point, you're starting to, again, build that momentum. And then you're feeling good about having accomplished a couple of things. You get to scratch things off your to-do list. And you're like, okay, this isn't as big as I thought it was. This isn't as crazy and scary as I thought it was. I'll just keep rolling.
I just got back Tuesday morning and I was just like out. I was like, no. And then I look at everything that now I've had 6,000 meetings and I'm like, oh God, like I can't even face these right now. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm just going to unpack my suitcase. I'm just going to do that.
Yep.
And like, just that felt so good where then I was like, maybe I'll just open my computer, right? And just like check out the new website I'm building. And then next thing you know, like I built the website and I'm like, oh wow. Like, but it's just like, little things that help build the momentum. I did get a nap in between there, but like I felt really good about. Yeah. But it was just like the first thing and the simplest thing that I could do for myself, and I find for myself is clean. Like that's just the simplest, easiest thing, and that makes me feel so good. Yeah. And then I'm ready to like tackle the next, like something off of the work. Like that's like my little tip for anybody.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm clean. But thanks so much for being on the show and talking with me again. I really think this is something that so many people can relate to. And I think just, like we talked about, like having that break glass plan, the kind talking to yourself, the gratitude, the do something small, like I know we've heard it before, but it's just like take action. Like there's only so much you can hear before you need to start doing it for yourself. So if there's anything that I hope anyone takes away from this is just pick one thing that we just talked about, just put it into action and see how you feel. And then let us know and reach out to Chris if you guys want some one-on-one coaching. He's amazing. Helps with your identity. And, and getting a better life. And so check them out and get that book. If anything, start there. The book is absolutely incredible. And it's not just a book that you guys are going to just read. It's actionable takeaways that you guys are also going to like do. You're going to be doing things throughout the book, and you don't need to like go linear with the book. Okay. That's the cool part. It's very lateral, and I love those lateral books. So highly recommend Beyond the Battlefield. Check it out. It's available on Amazon. Check out Chris. His links are all in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, become a Substack subscriber. Everything on the Substack is completely free, and it's just extra goodies for you guys to take action and elevate your life. And thank you guys for listening.